Hey, what's up, everybody? Ron Harris here. Today, I want to talk about what many people consider not only the best version we ever saw of the great Flex Wheeler, but also the greatest physique we ever saw on a bodybuilding stage. Flex Wheeler at the Arnold Classic in 1993, which was not his pro debut. He had actually won the 1993 Ironman Pro Invitational 2 weeks prior to this. But right here was the first we got an indication that this guy was going to be a force to be reckoned with. Not only that, probably going to win the Mr. Olympia someday, which he never did, but my goodness, he should have. So let's take a look at this. Here's Flex. Now, this was the lightest that we ever saw Flex on a pro stage, 216 pounds. He had been about 10 pounds heavier than this 2 weeks prior at the Ironman Pro, but then really went into one of those dark places, literally like a darkened room, to do 2 to 3 hours of cardio a day. I think he's on zero carbs. There's Lee Labrada and his wife Robin with baby Hunter Labrada. Why they cut to that during his routine, I have no idea. He came into this just chiseled. Best condition we ever saw Flex in. Every muscle fiber in bold detail. Now, this is not HD 4K footage like we have now. If it was, you'd be even more impressed with what you see. This is the technology we had at the time, 31 years ago. So you could see perfectly round, full muscle bellies, everything just in proportion and harmony with everything else, every muscle group flowing into everything else, clear separations between all the muscle groups, striations left and right, everywhere you look, not one weak body part. This was what many consider the greatest rookie year of all time, because he would win this and go on to take second place at his Mr. Olympia debut to Dorian Yates a few months after this. He won not only the Ironman and this show, but also 2 Grand Prix shows in France and Germany. So, yeah, that's a pretty darn good rookie year. He would win this Arnold Classic 3 more times, 97, 98, and 2000. He would also take second place at the Mr. Olympia, not only in 93, but 2 more times for a total of 3 runner-ups, 1998, 1999 to Ronnie Coleman. And we'll take a look at how much bigger he was at those later shows in a little bit here. This is about Flex, but I want to give some credit to the other guys. Here's second place Lee Labrada. Lee Labrada here, another guy who was just a study in perfection. Incredible shape, always brought the condition. One of, if not the greatest posers of all time in the sport. He had been second place at the Mr. Olympia at this point already twice, 2 years in a row, 1989 and 1990. His pro debut had happened in 1986, where he had won the Night of Champions. And again, he had taken second place to Flex just a couple weeks before this. He would take fourth place at the Mr. Olympia later this year, and he would only compete 2 more times after this show, that Olympia, and where he'd take fourth. And then he came back one last time at the 1995 Arnold Classic, got 5th place. Lee could see the writing was on the wall. He could see that they were going with bigger guys. The era of the mass monsters were being ushered in with guys like Dorian Yates, Nasser El-Somebody, Paul Dillet. We had Jean-Pierre Fuchs. There were some big guys coming on the scene. Lee was perfect, but he was not a mass monster. Now, this next guy, one of the greats who I think doesn't get enough recognition for the things he accomplished and how good he was. Talking about Vince Taylor. There's a look at the prize money. You can see first prize was $80,000. It was $400,000 earlier this year, and it's being bumped up to $500K next year. So there's Vince with that robot routine that he pioneered. He was the very first person to do that. He had made his pro debut in 1989 with a win at the Night of Champions. Also got 3rd place at his Olympia debut that year. Pretty darn great. So the 1989 Olympia, he was 3rd. 1991 in Orlando, he was 3rd again. 1995 Mr. Olympia, he was 5th. He would go on to become the greatest Masters pro of all time. I don't think that's up for debate at all. He won the Masters Mr. Olympia 5 times. He's also the only man to win the Masters Arnold Classic, because it was only held once, 1998. If you follow Vince on social media, he'll be turning 68 this August, and he looks fantastic. Not quite as big, but the shape is still there, and he stays very lean. You know, still has his hair, all that good stuff. Certainly the way a lot of us wish we could look at 68 years old, if God willing, we all make it that far. Vince, like I said, very underrated. He was in that era that was just so tough, the 90s. He was one of the greats, though, for sure. He won a lot of pro shows, and he made his mark on the sport. I just wish more of the newer fans knew who he was and appreciated how good he was and how much he accomplished. I think he had close to 20 pro wins overall. He was pretty darn great. Next up, a guy who had also made his pro debut 2 weeks before at the Pro Ironman and also had turned pro the year before, just like Flex. Talking about Paul Dillet. So Paul, look at that, man. He was a monster. Some of the widest shoulders I've ever seen on a human being in my life. Again, this was his second pro show. He never won the Mr. Olympia, but he did pretty well. This year, 93, he took sixth. 94, he was fourth place. 96, fifth. 97, fifth. 98, he didn't place. 99, 9 would be his final Olympia. He took seventh. Remember, guys, he was competing with guys like Dorian Yates, Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, Nasser El-Somebody. It was a very, very tough era, but he was one of the best. At the Arnold Classic, this was his debut. He took fourth. 1996, he would come back and take third, behind, again, Kevin Levrone and Flex Wheeler. 1997, sixth place. And he did win the 1999 Night of Champions in a field of 43 men. Those shows were stacked. When people say a show is stacked now and it has like 12 or 15 guys, I laugh because that Night of Champions routinely had 40-plus men in a lineup. Last guy I want to take a look at from the top five. He was fifth place. We're looking at J.J. Marsh. Didn't compete a whole lot as a pro. He turned pro in 87. Had 2 pro wins. 1990 Houston Pro and the 1991 Pro Ironman, which was the very first pro show I ever went to. At the Arnold, a couple years before this, in 1991, he had taken fourth place. Here he was fifth. I'm sorry, the year before he was seventh. So, he did the Arnold Classic 3 times. Again, didn't compete a whole lot, but he had a great physique. It was just a very tough era. Known for his legs, known for overall shape and flow. So let's go into the pose down for the show. So here was your top 6. You see Vince Taylor, Paul Dillet, Flex Wheeler, Labrada. You see Mike Matarazzo is the one walking over now. Mike was 6th place. They didn't have much footage of him. The late Mike Matarazzo from Boston. Vince was looking crazy good condition right there. I mean, the guys do come in shape now. I don't want to take anything away from them. But 90s condition was pretty darn great. It was just a different era. I'm not saying it was better. It was a different era. Obviously, I look at these things through the glasses of nostalgia because I was there and I was young. I was 23 years old when this show happened. And these guys to me were larger than life, superhero action, comic book action figures, basically. It was it was a crazy group. I mean, look at the talent. And this was just I don't say just the Arnold, but the Olympia was even more competitive than this once you got into the top 5, top 6. Dillet, man, with those arms that he had. And there was no 212 division back then. Lee Labrada here is probably about a 185 or 190. And obviously he didn't just hold his own. He beat all these guys except for one. Flex was the only guy he wasn't able to beat. Moving on now to the awards. So they cut to the top 3. And you can see Flex, not a huge guy. I think by current classic physique standards, he would either be able to make the weight for classic or he would not be far off at all. He'd be very close. Vince in third there. Yeah, Vince. I saw Vince many times. I was always impressed with him. It came down to the final 2. And they keep cutting backstage to Lee's wife, Robin. Still together today. Flex Wheeler and Lee Labrada. Who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? The rookie or the veteran at this point? And you'll see the moment of truth. The announcement comes through. And your winner is Flex Wheeler. And Flex did that thing that Ronnie would become famous for, which is go down to the ground, collapse when he won. I don't know what JJ was saying to him there, but everyone's congratulating him. Look at those calves on Matarazzo. Can you see that? That's Rafael Santoja giving him the medal, who now runs the other IFBB over in Spain. Robin happy, although I'm sure she wanted him to win, of course. Flex and Paul were very good friends. They both trained. They weren't training partners, but they were both trained by Charles Glass. They trained at the same gym, Gold's Gym Venice. You'd see them at all the local shows. This crew of like Cormier, Dillet, Rico McClinton, Flex, a couple other guys. the Gold's Gym Venice crew, they all sort of stuck together. There were your final results. Now, the last thing I want to look at is Flex as he would appear later in his career, 6 years later. We're looking at the 1999 Mr. Olympia here, where Flex would take second place to Ronnie. He is 243 pounds here. So that is, let's see, 16, 23, 28 pounds. Is that right? Significantly heavier. 243 is a lot more than 216. But I didn't like this look. I didn't like this version of Flex anywhere near as much. The detail is gone. The condition is gone based on what we had seen. And to me, he looked smooth and washed out. Big and full, absolutely. He also had started, admittedly, he said this, I'm not just accusing him of it. He had started putting SEO, site enhancement oil, into shoulders and arms. I don't know if the calves have some sort of Esiclean, temporary inflammatory agent in them or not. But the physique to me didn't even flow as well as it had when he was smaller. And I'm not saying that because, I don't like size. I'm a fan of all types of physiques, the mass monsters and the smaller guys. I love classic physique just as much as I love open bodybuilding. So it's not that. I just thought he was damn near perfect at the lighter body weight, 216, which we never saw again. And I don't know if it's because he didn't want to suffer to get into that condition again, or if he just felt the need to get bigger and bigger. Because, he started chasing Dorian Yates. He was second place to Dorian in 93. Dorian was the biggest guy, and a lot of guys tried to play Dorian's game and chase him in size and equal him in size. And for most guys, it didn't work out. A lot of them got big bellies doing that. They got bubble guts. For Flex, I don't think it served him. He continued winning plenty of shows. He won 4 Arnold Classics. He won a lot of pro shows, did very well. But was it the best version of him? I don't think so. Now, last thing we're looking at here is 2 weeks later, the English Grand Prix. He was 17 pounds up. I don't even know what he did. I don't know if it was just eating or insulin. I don't know what he did to put on. Come in 17 pounds heavier. The condition doesn't look really any different to me. But here he's big and full and round, massive. This was the biggest Flex we ever saw. And if you want to see a guy with, the round, full muscle bellies maxed out in terms of size, this was it. This was it. Now, the reason I don't think he ever won the Olympia, especially even though he had the size here, the same size as Ronnie, he and Ronnie Coleman at those Olympias in 98, 99, they were about the same body weight. The difference was Ronnie was in that body weight with a lot more detail, better condition than what Flex had. So guys, let me know in the comments, because we all have our own opinions. Your opinion is just as valid as mine or anyone else. Did you like the smaller, lighter 216-pound version of Flex Wheeler, or do you prefer the bigger one we saw toward the end of the 90s there, at the end of the 90s, 243, 250, 260 pounds? Was that a better version of Flex in your eyes? There are no wrong answers, but I'm very curious to what you guys have to say. So please drop a comment. And of course, it doesn't cost you anything, but helps me out if you subscribe, like, share these videos, ring that notification bell. And of course, follow me on Instagram at Ron Harris Muscle. Again, it doesn't cost you anything, it helps me out. Anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. And until the next one, thanks for watching. Peace.